Welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. Our theme for 2025 is the future of work. Meaning is the new money. In a world shaped by rapid innovation and constant change, the pursuit of purpose and impact has never been more important. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host, bringing over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic thinking, and purpose-driven innovation. Here, we tackle the pressing challenges of our time, from the rise of artificial intelligence to the growing need for meaning in the workplace. Together, we'll uncover how leaders can ethically integrate AI to enhance decision-making and keep humanity at the heart of their organizations. Remember, amidst all the technological advancements, in the end, it's always about the people. This podcast is your resource for actionable tools, thought-provoking discussions, and inspiring stories. It's time to go beyond leadership development and focus on leadership impact, creating workplaces where people thrive, innovation flourishes, and meaning truly becomes the new currency. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now, let's throttle up and dive into today's episode. Hello again and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Dr. John Dentico. With me today is Keith Ellis. Keith is a best-selling author and #1 superpower coach in the world. He reinvented the art of setting goals in his classic book, The Magic Lamp. Goal setting for people who hate setting goals, which has helped more than 100,000 readers around the globe. Soon after, he was the 6th employee hired by a tiny internet startup named Web Methods as their first VP of sales. 3 years later, they went public in one of the largest software IPOs in history. Then he wrote a book that changed everything. Magic Questions is the name of the book, How to Transform Your Life at the Speed of Thought. Now Keith has just published the first $10,000 book in history, 10 times Superpower, How to Make the Impossible Easy, which reveals the secret to how he helps entrepreneurs achieve impossible goals. And he's here to share this $10,000 secret today for free. I am truly pleased and honored to have him here on the podcast. Good afternoon, Keith. How are you?
I'm delighted to be here. That's how I am. And thanks for the opportunity, John. And I love the lead in. I think we should just put that on a loop, okay?
That's right. Going. Yeah, that's it. Put it on a loop. We'll put it on. I just had an interview with a gent who says he can get you on the 96-foot in New York City. So, well, maybe we could loop it into that, but it's going to cost some coin. It's going to cost some coin. So, Keith, I have to start with this. What is the first $10,000 book in history?
So it's a sort of a long story. I'm going to try to truncate a little bit here.
Okay.
So you mentioned a couple of books that preceded the current one about goal setting and one about magic questions. And this has been a quest for me. I've been a success junkie my whole life. And I got to the point where I knew I needed to set goals. I just hated setting goals. And one day I was literally in the shower and it occurred to me that setting goals is exactly the same as making your wishes come true, like with a magic lamp, except that you're the genie. And it was like one of those aha moments. I was so excited, I almost slipped in a bar of soap, jumped out of the shower, dripping wet, started writing. I always keep a notepad pen nearby to write down ideas. I started writing down this framework for the magic lamp, and that became a book, and that was successful. So I used the framework to write the book, to get it published with one of the big publishers in the world. And I used it for many years, and it was terrific. But I realized I was creating incremental progress. And I reached a stage in life where I wanted more than that. I wanted extraordinary. You get to your 40s and you think you're running out of time. Now, maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but it's just the drill. And isn't there more than this? And I reached that point. So I went back into the whole success literature and seminars and peppering people with questions. And I realized what was missing was a certain type of question that is at the heart of what everybody teaches, whether it's leadership or motivation, from Socrates to Tony Robbins, you name it. Everybody has questions at the heart of what they teach, a certain type of question. And I started researching what that question was, how it worked, and I thought of it as a magic question. So that's literally now a trademark I own, Magic Questions, because it changed everything for me and changed a lot of lives. So that was great. And then I was thinking, but there's something missing from that too. Because again, life's a journey and I'm on the journey. I want to grow. Growth is my highest value. Giving to others is part of that, but it's helping them grow. That's how I choose to give to others. I want to reach my potential. I want to help other people reach their potential. So that's where this 10X superpower came from. I realized that we tend to sell ourselves short. We tend to think, I was taught, don't expect too much. Literally, I was taught that. Coaches, family, that kind of thing. Don't expect too much. Don't get your expectations too high. You'll be disappointed. Don't set a goal, but make it achievable, make it realistic. And I did that for years and years. And then I realized I'm sorry for the language, but that's a bunch of crap. What we need to do is set a goal that is so audacious for us. We know it's impossible. We can't do it. We know we can't do it. We set an impossible goal and commit to it, because commitment is the key here. And then as soon as you commit to an impossible goal, your brain changes. Your brain starts saying, oh, this guy's serious about this. Let's see how we can make it possible. And then, spoiler alert here, what the book is about is the secret to achieving an impossible goal, a goal that you genuinely believe is impossible. When you say something's impossible, what you really mean is it's impossible for you. You are not capable of doing it. What if you add to your capabilities? Now suddenly everything becomes possible. And the key capability is to understand that the way to reach an impossible goal is to find people who can help you get there. This is where you start building a team. You find what I call the right who. That's a term I stole from a guy named Dan Sullivan, who's a brilliant entrepreneurial coach and philosopher. You find somebody, it's like casting a play or a movie. You figure out what role you want somebody to play in your company. Because again, my specialty is entrepreneurs, right? You figure out what role you want somebody to play, and then you find the right person for that role. You find somebody who shows up in character and is ready for that role and loves that role. And then you find somebody else and you find somebody else. You add their capabilities to yours. And suddenly you realize there's no limit to this, right? There are lots of people in the world. If I can increase my capabilities by collaborating with people and adding their capabilities, suddenly I can do anything. And that got me really excited. That turned into the 10X Superpower. And that book is about 10 breakthroughs, each of which can change your life. But if you put them all together, you've got this unbelievable power to 10X your life, to take where you are and literally make a leap 10 times beyond that. And I'm talking about, it can be measurable, easily measurable, like revenue or customers or profit. It can be qualitative, like relationships, health, these kinds of things. But it all starts with creating this impossible dream, if you will. And then suddenly your brain starts saying, oh, okay, let's get to work on that. And it blows my mind to this day. And I wrote the book. So anyway, sorry, long-winded. You asked the wrong question, you get one of these answers. I'm sorry.
You take me back. You take me back to when I was 19 years of age. I was sitting in the library of my college, a sophomore in college, and I was reading an economics. I mean, you could pour sand out of this economics book. You know what I mean? It doesn't get much drier than this.
Yep.
And I remember looking up and saying, I think I'll become a naval officer. I had no idea where to even start or what to do or if it was even possible. So I went down to the career counseling office that they had at the college. I said, you got a folder on the Navy here by any chance? Oh, yeah. So I took a postcard, I filled it out and mailed it in, and the process began. And I became a naval officer. It's still today one of the greatest things I've ever done. Got into a program. No one had any idea what this program was. It was called ROC. It was a ROC program, Reserve Officer Candidate. You went to school. You went to training, naval training, after your junior year in college, Newport, Rhode Island. You came back and finished your senior year, got your certificate, got your graduation, and then went back and finished the last 12 weeks. It's still today one of the best things I've ever done. I had no idea that it was even possible. It's just here we go. And I've always felt like, in my life anyway, there have always been the difficult things that have been in my path. And my I don't know, cavalier response to it sometimes is, I'll figure it out. When I get there, I'll figure it out. So I completely understand that people are, reluctant, and I can understand that. For every one person that tells you you're doing something right, there's 12 that are telling you you're doing something wrong.
Right.
I'm sure you know that. And, you just have to have confidence in yourself and say, hey, you know what? I'll figure it out when I get there. One by one, step by step. It may take me several years, but it's okay. I'm not doing anything else right now. I think I'll just move along that path. I wanted to talk to you about this because I thought this was very interesting in our workup for today. You speak to the idea that successful entrepreneurs often find themselves trapped by their success, having sacrificed much of their personal life and perhaps health to start and run a successful business. How do you help these entrepreneurs move to another level that is, as you say, 10 times more than where they are now? It seems to me that they might have to sacrifice more in order to get to that level. It almost seems counterintuitive. What and how do you teach them, if you don't mind talking about that, teach them to make these gains without falling into the trap again of self-sacrifice?
So this is a great question, and I'm so glad you asked this because it is counterintuitive. Essentially, everything in this book is counterintuitive, which is, I think, one of the reasons it makes so much sense to me, because my brain's always worked that way. I've been all about conventional wisdom until I find something that turns conventional wisdom on its head and works better. And wow, bingo, aha moment. So that's really what the book's about. And one of those aha moments is the idea that if you commit to an impossible goal, your immediate reaction is, I want to grow my life, my business by a factor of 10. I can't work 10 times harder. There's not 10 times more hours in the day. And this puts a lot of people off. And in fact, I would guess that maybe 1 in 100, this isn't scientific, but this is just anecdotal observation. 1 in 100 people I encounter are really ready to make this commitment. And the primary reason they aren't is what you just said. I can't do any more than this. I'm already sacrificing my life to build this business. I love the business, but I love my family too. I can now afford to have a life. Wouldn't it be great to have a life? And the counterintuitive piece of this is that it's actually easier to do the impossible goal than to do what you're doing now. This is the thing that blew my mind when I was trapped in doing incremental progress for all these years, using what I created, this system for setting goals, and it was working like a champ, and I was making incremental progress. And I was working as hard as I could possibly work, which is the way most entrepreneurs are, by the way. They are just working flat out. And then it occurred to me that if I use this 10x goal, and I use 10x and impossible interchangeably, 10x just puts a number on an impossible goal. If I use this 10x goal as a filter, suddenly all the noise in my life goes away, and I focus on exactly what I need to do to take my life, take my business where I want it to go. It's actually easier when you do that than it is to do what you're currently doing, because what you're currently doing probably is getting lost in the details. I know so many entrepreneurs that create a business because they love something. They want to do something. They want to work on cars, or they want to do healthcare, or they want to teach children, or something, some great model to do something. And now they are doing payroll and doing HR and taxes and all this other stuff, and then managing this whole group they've created, and they've become overhead in their own company. And what I teach is, if you focus on this impossible goal, you'll realize a couple of things. One of them is, suddenly you don't worry about all this other crap. It's not, if you think of the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of what you do produces 20% of your results. 20% produces 80% of your results. I've heard that for years, just as you have. what I always ask myself is, how do you know the difference? How do you tell the difference between the 20 and the 80%? You can do it after the fact. You can look back and say, oh yeah, last year that 20% really produced 80% of our results. But how do you do it looking forward? And this impossible goal, this committing to impossible goal, takes care of that. It gets rid of all the crap, and it says, look, there are only a couple of ways you can achieve an impossible goal. There are probably 1,000 ways you can achieve an incremental goal. There are only a couple of ways you can achieve an impossible goal. So you filter your focus. And then once you do that, your brain starts, as we talked about before, like with your Navy story, your brain starts figuring out, oh, okay, how do I make this happen? And then once you start making that happen, you realize, I'm not worried about this other stuff. This is actually easier. In your case, you probably weren't too worried about what you were going to do after college because you committed to the Navy. So here's
Exactly
one
right.
huge issue that most college students are asked every time they talk to their uncle or their grandparents. What are you going to do? And yours is, I got that nailed. I'm there. So this kind of thinking is actually easier than conventional thinking. And I know that's counterintuitive, and I get it, but it's true. It actually makes life simpler. So it simplifies the entrepreneur's journey. And the second thing the entrepreneur learns is, I can't do this the way I got here. What got me to this point of success isn't going to get me to that next level. I have to do things differently. And the first thing they realize they have to do differently is, I have to do what I'm good at, what I love to do. That's what I bring to the company. Then I have to find the right who's, we're back to that term again, I have to find the right who's to do the things they love to do that need to get done. And then you have this whole culture, again, it's back to this casting metaphor. You have this whole culture that's filming a movie. Everybody's playing a role they want to play. They love it. They can't wait to get to work in the morning. You're playing a role you want to play. You cast yourself in that role. You can't wait to get to work in the morning. And part of that role includes, I want to have time for my family. I want to take time off because that's really why I'm doing this stuff, right? So it all fits together in a way that it can't fit together until you commit to this impossible goal.
Very, very interesting. I was just thinking, I remember clearly after I had gone to my first training at Officer Candidate School, I came back for as I said to you, my senior year in college.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a business fraternity. Most of them were accountants, getting ready to go into the work world. And I remember sitting at the lunch table where we'd all gather together. And I was just very relaxed and very calm. And they were running around like chickens without heads.
Absolutely.
Because they were getting ready for interviews. They had to do interviews with accounting firms or with the IRS or as a junior guy and different things like that. And I'm sitting around looking at them going, I guess I don't get this because I knew where I was going. I had already figured that out. And I think that's so very important is when you focus on that thing that matters to you, that truly matters to you, everything else pales to insignificance in a sense. Oh, sure, there's important things you have to do, but you say, that's where I'm going. And I will do what it takes to get there. So I'm absolutely in agreement with.
No, you hit the nail on the head. I wish I had said it that eloquently. I think about something called joy strengths. Joy strengths are the things that you love to do so much, you're good at them. And you're so good at them, you love doing them. It's like a circle. And we all know these things. We all have these things. Most entrepreneurs don't spend any time doing their joy strengths. They're doing all this other crap. And the commitment you made allowed you to focus on what you wanted to do. And another piece of that, while we're talking leadership, is the bigger your goal, your impossible goal for your company, the more people have to buy into, the more excited they get because they're part of something bigger than themselves. You served your country. There is nothing bigger. I don't think it's a whole lot bigger than that. So you did two things. You didn't just commit to, okay, this is my future. So that, boy, does that simplify my life. But you also committed to something way larger than yourself. So that does a couple of things. One, it brings out the best in you because this is more important than me, right? What I'm doing is more important than me. So every day you show up with that in mind, which is a phenomenal mindset to have. But you're also completely congruent about doing it. This is my choice. This is what I want to do. So everything you do is authentically you, and it's the best you got, because
Right.
you can't wait to be given the best you got to this bigger vision. And when an entrepreneur creates this bigger vision, he gives his people, his cast or her cast, the chance to buy into this bigger vision and have that, at least some portion of that same experience you had, which is, wow, this is great coming to work in the morning because I'm serving this amazing bigger vision. I'm serving something more important than me. And that's a great place to be.
It's interesting you should say that. I'm going to come to your point. I'm going to come in through a different door.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to kick a different door open. So let me give you a little background. For a number of years, I refrained from, shied away from speaking about organizations' mission statements. And I brought this up in several other podcasts. I'm sure people are getting tired. He's not going to talk about that again, is he? Yeah, I think he is. And I shied away from it. And I did it because whenever you ask someone if they had a mission statement, I'm sure you've seen this. They go, oh, yeah, we got one of those. Where is it? Oh, it's hanging on the wall over there. Do you live it?
Yeah. Right.
Do you breathe it?
Do you know it?
Do you do it every day? Do you know it? No, we just walk by it every day. No. This, to me now, I've returned to this subject with great fervor because one of the things that I have learned over the course of the last 18 months is how important it is for people in the work world, in this post-pandemic world that we live in, to have values alignment with the organization with whom they work.
Yep.
Okay. They want their values to be reflective of the organization values and vice versa. Okay. So I had started, if you will, building this bridge from one side. Here's what an organization needs to do to bring people in, hire them, retain them, attract them. You have to find the synchronicity, if you will, with your values and this person. Not everyone's going to be there, but kind of what you have to do. And what I had not done and what I am doing now is I'm talking, well, wait a minute. How can you expect to bring a person into your organization based on using values alignment as one a marker, if you will, if the organization itself is not aligned along its own values?
Yep.
So you really need to build the bridge from two sides. And I think this drives directly to the point you made. I want people to be excited about coming to work. But how do I get them excited? What's step one in getting them excited? Well, step one is tell them who you are. Tell them what you do.
Yep.
Tell them what you're committed to.
Yep.
Tell them what puts fizz in your soda. It's those kinds of things that wait a minute, if we're aligned, we in the organization, 20 people, 10 people, 50 people, 100 people, if we're aligned, and that mission statement, we live it every day. We come in and we touch that mission statement. It's on a plaque. We touch it every day when we come in, like a good luck charm. Then now it gets a lot easier to look out and say, this is the kind of person we want to bring into the company. This is the kind of individual who reflects the values that we have. I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Oh, again, you hit the nail on the head. The challenge, there are two kinds of leaders, the gross simplification. There are leaders who inherit a team, and there are leaders who build a team. And they both have this problem, which is, the bridge building you're talking about is a little bit different when you're building a team as opposed to when you inherit a team. But most people end up with a little bit of both. The classic entrepreneur I deal with has built a team already. But he built it. He chose these people. So he's involved. He understands it. And there's some level in theory of trust, because you're also talking about trust.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about integrity. You're talking about it goes without saying, which means I'm going to say it. The values you're talking about have to be values that other people would value, right? If your
Correct.
values are, I'm going to cheat everybody from every last nickel, and then we're going to try to get out of the country before we're caught, maybe you'll recruit a certain type of person, but I wouldn't want to work for a company like that. On the other hand, if your values are, we want to leave the world better than we found it. We're asking people for money in return for far more value than we're charging. And this will help their lives, help their families' lives, all these things. If you're clear on that and your people are clear on it, that's a nice thing to buy into. So the values have to be valuable. And you know that intuitively, but that's a key piece. The other thing you're talking about is authenticity. A lot of people, it's easy, again, depends how you were brought up. And I was brought up to be straight ahead, tough guy, let's get this done kind of stuff. And then as I've grown up, I've realized what really matters is to be me, so that people have somebody to relate to who is authentic. If I'm pretending to be this person over here, that's not going to work. They're going to find it out. There's going to be a loss of trust, even if it's not explicit, because they know there's something, behind the curtain that I'm not showing them. On the other hand, if what I'm saying is, look, this is what I care about. This is why I formed this company. These are the things we're working toward. And I'm talking about what's really me. I'm being really authentic. People love that. People relate to that. And some people might say, no, I don't want to be part of that. Fine. That's okay. But then they get a chance to come in and be authentic with you rather than BSing you. And you know that in a second, right? If you say, this is really important to me, and they say, oh, yes, gee, Dr. Dentico, this is really important to me too. And whether it is or whether it isn't, right? So all this stuff is part of this same whole, which is your values. The mission statement reflects your values. If it doesn't, then it's not a mission statement in any sense that I would understand it. And if it does reflect your values, then people are living them daily anyway, because you're getting people in who share your values. It's like a self-correcting mechanism. Yeah. And the values are the key that makes it work.
Yeah, and the values I talk about all the time, absolutely trust. Yes. Trust is, people talk about building relationships. Well, my answer is, if you don't have trust, you have no relationship. So Forget it. Don't even waste your time, building trust. And the other thing too, I see this all the time. In fact, I was talking to a woman, Marie Claire Ross from Australia yesterday, who's written a book on trust, on her trust model. And there are people who believe that trust is a trait. I said, I don't buy that. Trust to me is a value. It's something we share. And she talked about shared values. Yeah. And trust is not something that happens. We like to think it is. You always say the great aura of trust descends upon us. No, it's not how it works. Trust, it takes, and this is where I make a differentiation between a behavior and an action. Trust is an intended action. It's an intended action that you take to build trust. Okay. For example, I'll give you a quick example. Let's say I worked for you, Keith, and you said to me, John, I need that report, that financial report on my desk Tuesday, 10 o'clock in the morning. So, okay, Keith, I got it. 9:45, I walk in and I hand you the report. You kind of leaf through it and say, yeah, I really like this. Looks good. You and I have built a little trust. You and I have created a little trust. So it's a subjective intended action. Behaviors, what people don't understand about behaviors, it's an unconscious reflective response. You're walking down the street and everything is great. And then the next thing you know, you hear this loud crash. And it may be a fender bender that occurred in the crosswalk. You hear this crash and you just jump. You flinch. What was that? Oh my goodness. Is everybody okay? That is a subjective, that is a objective reflective response. So, and in order to change behavior, you have to engage in subjective intended actions. In psychology, there's a rule called the rule of 7. It goes like this. You want to change a habit, you got to build another habit. That's the only way you get rid of a habit. Create another habit. And you have to do that habit at least 7 times for it to stick. So you have to say, and I'll use myself as an example. I was a terrible listener. Terrible. Really terrible. And I had to learn, John, calm down, relax, listen, open these up and listen. And in so doing, eventually, I became a lot better at it. But it took these subjective intended actions to do that. I don't know if I've gotten off on a tangent here. But the point I think I'm trying to make is values matter. And the values of trust, honesty, integrity, caring, they matter. I used to say this when I was a naval officer, we'd get somebody new on the ship. Give me the person who has the right attitude. I can train them to do anything.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen that in your work. Any reflection on those thoughts?
Yeah. So you covered a lot of ground there. And I'm going to put it in a big rubric. That's one of my favorite topics, which I can go off on for days. What you described really is thinking about your thinking. You described how people can consciously live the lives they want to live rather than simply reacting to what the world throws at them. And it's very easy to spend huge swaths of your life just reacting. The world dumps something on you, you deal with it, that's the way it is. But you're talking about the conscious, subjective choice. It's all about thinking. It's all about making choices related to your values. You can choose values too, by the way, right? You can say
right.
that this
Absolutely.
matters to me, and I'm going to pursue actions that reflect my values. And so it's all about who you choose to be. And in the larger piece of this, when I talk about this impossible goal and this 10x goal, the benefit is never the goal. It's never achieving what you set out to achieve. The benefit is becoming the person for whom the impossible goal becomes possible. The benefit is growth. Now, this is my personal view of the world. Maybe other people don't care about growth. I figure if you're not growing, you're dying. That's an old saying, but I really believe that. And if you look around, the world supports that. Either this thing over here is growing or it's dying. These plants in the backyard, the flowers in the pot, they're either growing or they're dying. And my approach to life and approach to this teaching, this 10X teaching, is if you set your goals something that is on something is so far beyond you, you don't think you can get there, you commit to it. You commit to the impossible, which is a leap of faith here, right? Counterintuitive. You commit to the impossible, and then your brain immediately starts saying, oh, let's see, here's how we can make this happen. Your brain hears this commitment as a filter. You start doing this, and you start adding capabilities, which is how you achieve impossible goals. You change what you're capable of. It's that simple. It's called growth. And you get the capabilities necessary, and then you make this you either achieve this thing or you fall short, or maybe you achieve 10 times what you thought you were going to achieve. Whatever. That doesn't matter nearly as much as the person you've become in the process. And if you don't get that, this process won't work for you, because you'll think what matters is the shining, glittery things that are at the end of the journey. And that's not what matters. What matters are the things you do to become the person you choose to be, because that's really what an impossible goal is. You're saying, that's impossible. I can't do this goal. I now choose to be somebody who can do this goal. And you've changed your whole life.
Yeah. And what you do is disregard the stuff that doesn't make any sense, that doesn't get you down that road.
Yep.
Because all it does is become a distraction.
Yep.
It's a distraction. Noise. This is not taking me where I want to go, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. I'm just going to focus in on this stuff.
The big challenge today, I think, the most valuable asset we have, any of us, is our attention. It's not money, it's our attention. And there are, 8 billion people in the world, probably 5 or 6 billion of them are connected via technology, which means on a given day, it can feel like 5 or 6 billion people are trying to get your attention. They're trying to distract you. And your attention is your most valuable property. Once you understand that, and you focus your attention on what you want to focus it on, and you realize this is my choice, then you start making decisions, you start making commitments that are reflective of what you really want rather than simply being pulled in all these different directions. And when you commit to an impossible goal, you're committing your attention. That's really what you're doing. So what you said just a second ago, all this stuff goes away. I think of it as signal to noise ratio, classic engineering term, right? We live in a society where most of what we encounter day in, day out is noise. There's useful signal in there. How do you find the signal? This is another way of saying the 80-20 thing, right? This is just a kind of a technical way to do it. But how do you find the signal? And my approach is, if you create a goal, a commitment, audacious enough, you will find the signal. The signal will emerge from the noise. And now it's a world beater. You can't be stopped when you start doing that.
Well, and not only that, but you get a chance to use the single most powerful force on earth. And the single most powerful force on earth is imagination. Everything we do begins and ends with an idea.
Yep.
And that's not my contribution. That comes from Albert Einstein.
Yep.
Einstein was once asked how he came up with the theory of relativity. And his response was unbelievable. He said, when I was 16 years of age, I imagined myself riding through the universe, standing on a moonbeam. I don't think I could do that. That's a little beyond my ability to imagine. But you get it. It is the single most powerful force. And yet I don't know. I think hopefully we're encouraging people at certain levels to use their imagination and engage their imagination and just take a minute and say, hey, just think about the fact that if you put it in your head, you can do it.
Yep.
It can be done. You just have to be willing. And here's the part that I found, this is the hard part, that you may have to make certain sacrifices. It won't be easy at times. The journey is hard. But if you stick with it, you'll get there eventually. But it may take more time than you think it's going to take. It may not take 3 or 4 years. It may take 10. It may take 15. But if you're so committed to this, it will happen. You just have to keep going. So Keith, go ahead.
Can I just do a quick touch on
Sure.
imagination, which is one of my all-time favorite topics? Like you, I've been in many conversations with people through the years, and the topic comes up of imagination, and they say, I don't have any imagination. And I look them right in the eye and I say, and that's an example of imagination. And they
Interesting.
go, I never thought of that. It's just your mind taking you to some place that doesn't exist. And that's imagination. And once you break through that, they begin to realize, oh, I've imagined all kinds of things. I just didn't realize it. Anyway,
yeah, I agree.
That's my contribution to that. I love it.
And you don't have to go down and order any imagination from Amazon. You already got it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You got tons of that stuff. You just have to figure out how to use it and how to focus it and how to channel it. And
nobody's in charge. Nobody's in charge of imagination, and you don't need permission to use it.
Exactly right.
Yep.
So we're getting close to the end here. So I'd like to ask you my worldwide most famous question. And that is, if you had a magic wand and you could change anything, what would you change and why did you choose that?
If I could change anything, I would want people, again, I focus on entrepreneurs, but this is much wider than that. This is the magic wand time. I would want people to understand they have the power to imagine an impossible future and to make it happen. I think if I could go to my great reward, whatever that may or may not be, having helped some people, one person, 50 people, 1,000 people, actually believe I can achieve the impossible. I can imagine it, I can achieve it, and I can help make the world a better place by doing that. That would be my magic wand moment.
Great answer. Great. I think we need more imagination at work. Someone once said they were talking about Hewlett-Packard, the creation of Hewlett-Packard many, many years ago.
Yep.
And it started in a garage. Hewlett Packard started in a garage. And one person said, the problem with America is we just don't have enough garages. And I thought that was, wow, right on the money. And we need more people to use their imaginations. And I think for the better of people, for the better of themselves, and for the better of the people around them. And I think that's so right on the money. Keith, it's been an honor and a privilege. You've been a fabulous guest. I can't thank you enough for your time today here on the podcast. I wish you all the success in the future. Thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you so much. This has been an absolute delight. Great show, John.
Thank you.